Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. Chapter 5 of Outed. Jared. It was just something for a headache, but I felt guilty. Maybe I should have bought Excedrin migraine or something stronger the way Mitch leaned back in the passenger seat, elbow over his eyes. Pulling into the little parking lot of the railroad park, just off of downtown, I parked next to Josh and Michaela's car, an older model Toyota, somewhere between the age of Mitch's ugly truck and my Hyundai. It was sparkly and shiny. Josh made sure of that. No dusty dashboards in that baby. So clean it looked newer than mine. Michaela and Josh were sitting at a picnic table under an awning. The table had a pink tablecloth and a vase with a pink rose. Pink frisbees were set out like place settings, and a couple of bowls of chips, and another with hummus and sliced vegetables, and another for almonds. Josh wore a pink t-shirt, and Michaela a pink top. They held hands, and Joshua couldn't stop grinning. A leave working? I opened the door and offered Mitch a hand. Starting to. Mitch grabbed my arm and pulled himself out and his backpack. He takes that thing everywhere. What's going on here? I don't think I have a pink anything, even a button. We walked over to the table and sat. Michaela couldn't stop smiling and her hands wouldn't stop fidgeting. Out with it. Mitch leaned in and grabbed a handful of almonds. What's with all the pink? I asked. Well, Michaela said, we thought we should tell you in person. Some things you don't text. Josh picked up Michaela's right hand, the one kids always called the claw, and kissed it. Some things you have to do in person. Michaela nodded and brought out her left hand. On the ring finger was an engagement ring, with one large center stone surrounded by 4 smaller stones. Doctor thinks 7 months, maybe a little bit less. It's a girl? I asked. That's why all the pink? Technically, we have to wait another 3 months to find out. Josh wrapped an arm protectively around Michaela. Josh, don't jinx it. I have a feeling about this. Josh, you always were an overachiever. Mitch lined up 3 almonds on the table. I bet it's triplets. There you would be wrong. Michaela took 2 of the almonds off the table and ate them. Latest ultrasound shows only 1 baby, and it will be a girl. You'll see. You two are getting married as well? I asked. I proposed, and she said yes, Josh said. In spite of your snoring, Michaela giggled. We just needed to decide whether to have the ceremony before or after the baby. How did the vampire, the girl with the claw, and Mr. Geek remain friends after high school? Everyone else I knew just faded away. All the days of glory vanished as everyone went to college or got jobs or moved away. They promised to stay in touch, but they never did. Yet the 3 social outcasts are better friends now than they were then. And an ex-jock has joined their groups. Or maybe I was the vampire's +1. I smiled a little at that. What's so funny? Joshua asked. Just thinking back to high school, I said. Definitely don't want to do that. Mitch tossed an almond into the air and caught it in his mouth. Do you ever wonder what happened to some of them? I asked. I've got the only one I want to remember right here. Michaela placed a hand on Joshua's hand that was across her shoulder. And I was too busy studying to meet anybody outside the library, Josh said. And nobody could find me, Mitch said. Did we ever figure out who won that last game, or are we still 50-50? Cat got that one, literally. We're both at 49.5, and our new cat gets 1. Mitch chuckled. He actually laughs around Michaela and Josh. You still got the frisbee skills? Bring it. Josh grabbed one of the frisbees and ran to the lawn. Mitch followed. Michaela grabbed my hand. You've got to see this. Call for Mitch. Mitch, come here for a second, I yelled. Running up with a frisbee, Mitch stopped outside the pavilion. Yeah? Tell him to flip. Michaela, Mitch sighed. Oh, show off a little bit. Flip for Jared. I said, flip? Mitch positioned himself, made sure no one was around him, and ran a couple of steps. He leaped off his feet, threw his arms forward, rolled in the air, and landed on his feet, his hair whirling around him. Ta-da! When did you learn that? I grabbed a frisbee and walked over. One of the brown belts at the dojo showed me how, and I've been practicing at it for a month. I threw an arm around Mitch's shoulders. You've been holding out on me. I did not. We were kind of busy with your backyard. Mitch, Mitch, Mitch. I shook my head. You never learned. I tweaked a spot on Mitch's ribs. Mitch screamed and fell to the ground, laughing. Bet your neck's not so tense now, I said. Don't hold down on me. I know how to get even. Mitch. Time to revamp Sunday's plan. Turn the hat around, come out to Jared. Jared will torture the hell out of me for holding out. Then we can talk all night. Happy ending. No more secrets. Minor change to the plan. Maybe Jared won't want to touch the gay guy. That might be one boundary that can't be crossed between the straight and the gay. What if Bailey was right and Jared would hate me after all? How many people are like Josh and Michaela? Michaela and me helped each other survive high school, at least until I changed to night school. Josh had laughed when he found out the lies Michaela and I had spread, and only wished he had been in on it so he could help. Michaela, Josh, and Jared were the only good things to come out of high school. Maybe the only good things that had happened in a long time. That and karate. After an hour of throwing the frisbee, we packed up the food and the cloths. Michaela pulled me aside. You need to tell him. I know. I picked up the frisbees from the table to avoid looking at her. Sunday. We have time for a long talk. Turn around so I can braid, Michaela said. Why not sooner? Tournament's on Saturday. Promise me. Sunday night. Michaela pulled the hair tie out, divided up the hair, and started braiding. I nodded. As long as I don't freeze up again. You are the bravest coward I know. And that's the reason we survived high school. Michaela finished the braid and fastened the hair tie at the end. We'll be in Vegas this weekend, so text me how it goes. This time it will be different. I know it. You can do it. You had better do it. You're making me nervous. The emotionless vampire scared of a little conversation. On the drive back to Harding's, I stared out the window. Maybe I should say something sooner. What was I so scared of? The people in all the YouTube videos cried and hugged and said how their lives were better and thanked each other and had their happy ending. But what if that didn't happen in the real world? Only in YouTube world. How's the headache? Almost gone. Maybe now was the time. I forced myself to breathe. Listen, I need to say something. Jared's phone buzzed and he pulled it out. What's up? Build up the courage. Under the counter by the sink, Jared said to his phone. I can do it. No, the other sink, Jared said. Just wait a moment. Do you need me to come in? Jared asked. Maybe not this moment. Jared hung up the phone. The Java Dive needs me. Is it okay if I drop you off? I've got to get to karate anyway, and get ready for the tournament. Jared pulled into Harding's parking lot and next to my truck. What were you trying to tell me? The most important thing in my life. I'll tell you Sunday night. Now's not a good time for either of us. Serious stuff? A little. Bailey's a demon from hell, Jared said. Too late. I already figured that one out. I undid the seatbelt and stepped out of his car. That's about right. See you later. Karate that night wasn't normal karate. It was more like office work. We stapled together packets for the judges, packets for all the entrants, packets for all the volunteers, made posters for the rules and posters for the proper etiquette, and parking signs, and signs to direct patrons to the gym, and flyers, and handouts. At 8, the alarm rang on my phone. Time to check my blood sugar, and I had forgotten dinner. And in the stress of my blood sugar issues, I hadn't eaten lunch. The migraine that had retreated for the afternoon returned. Eating half of one of the protein bars, I excused myself from the others and accidentally drove back to the Monster House. Bailey had parked his Beamer X6 in the drive, but no sign of Donna's Maserati Ghibli. No sign of any broken windows either. They must have gotten it fixed. I drove down the street, leaving the red brick house alone. After Sunday, I could tell Jared what Bailey really yelled. Why I refused to take their money. Why living in my truck was better than living there. Sunday night, after the hat arrived, Jared would know me, and we would still be friends. Unless Bailey was right, and the world hated people like me. Friday, one day before the apocalypse. Jared. 5:30 again. Opening. Groan. Shower. Dress. Coffee. Breakfast. No Mitch on the sofa. He must be in the bathroom. Coffee done. Caffeine is so nice. The back porch light was on. I stepped to the door and opened it. Mitch was outside, shirtless, and working on his karate moves or dance or whatever you call them. His black hair hung loose and moved with a slight wind. I sat on the stairs, sipping my coffee. Mitch hadn't noticed me. He'd been out here a while because his body dripped with sweat. The girls would love that body. He'd probably get sympathy hugs for all the diabetic marks. His face shined with sweat, and the sweat made his hair stringy, and his blonde roots showed. After pausing for a minute, Mitch wiped his face with the back of his hand and looked up. Morning. Mornings start too early. You look like you woke up early. I couldn't sleep. You want to tell me what's going on? Mitch stared at the ground. Sunday. It would take too long, and you've got to get to the Java Dive, and I've got Harding's and the tournament to set up for. If you need to talk, I can get things opened at the dive and take a sick day. No, Sunday night. We can talk for hours like we always do. Besides, it's the Perseids. Sunday. I stood, sipping my coffee and staring into the cup. I told Mom you spiked yesterday from the pancakes. She swore and tossed them out. It's my fault, though, and I'm a coward because I can't tell him. I wasn't going to say anything. I know, you never do. Mitch walked up the steps. After work, I need to pick up more test strips. I went through them too fast yesterday. Speaking of which, when was the last time you checked? Why? He asked. I got worried seeing you on the couch like that. Spikes always come with headaches? No, I get migraines when I stress. I'm still so new at this diabetic stuff that it doesn't take much to stress me out. The journal? Mitch squatted on the ground and drew some random pattern in the dirt. Not fair. He can squat and keep his feet flat on the ground. When the doctor first diagnosed me, they had me talk to a dietitian and a diabetic specialist. They thought that I would get used to it eventually and it would become habit. But they also assumed Donna and Bailey cared about me and would help. Instead, my parents were too busy to help me, and I used the journal to track everything: carbs, sugars, calories, food lists, daily foods, good foods, bad foods, internet ideas about to eat, what not to eat, low carb, high carb, paleo, you name it, it's in there. That book is a record of my last 11 months. Do you think you'll stop? Every time I don't check, something like yesterday happens. Mitch frowned. You're going to be late for work. You need to get going. How can I tell him yesterday was my fault? And you need a shower. I'll see you later.